Salutations friends, welcome back to my channel. Yes, I'm finally filming in this room and I'm so excited to talk to you guys about KiKi. This is the newest fragrance released from House of Matriarch, and this is a fragrance that Lola from LolaScents and myself had a hand in its creation, and I'm really excited to finally talk about this fragrance with you guys and talk about why it was so important to us and how fun it was, and also to kind of review and describe this fragrance. So if you'd like to know more about KiKi, then keep watching. First things first, I obviously had a part in this fragrance. This isn't like She from House of Matriarch in regards to that was like a collaboration between me and Christi in a fragrance inspired by me, which was really cool. KiKi in and of itself is inspired by the Scissor Sisters song, Let's Have a KiKi. And the idea behind this fragrance is that it is supposed to be a party with friends. You have your disco balls, you have your black lights, you're sitting around with your girls or your guys, and you're just having a good time and you're just celebrating life. And to be perfectly honest, this fragrance has been in the mindosphere of Christi for a very long time. And when we were working on she had talked about wanting to do this and wanting to get together with Lola and kind of create this fragrance and do this project, because she thought it would be amazing to get together with some of her girlfriends and create a really awesome fragrance. So around this year is the time that we all had time. Lola could do it, I could do it, Christi could do it. And so for the past year, we've really been focusing on this fragrance, KiKi. Now I do have to give a little shout out to my girl KiKi. This is my cat. She's making a little appearance here. I love the art for this bottle. This is something that's very personal to all of us, and I'm excited. So let's get into talking about KiKi, and I will review it for you guys, but obviously this review is biased because this is a fragrance that I had a hand in creating from start to finish in regards to its smell and how I wanted it to smell. So obviously this is going to be a positive review because this is something that I was a part of. Read the notes, but I'm going to be talking about the notes in this too, because this is a tea fragrance. This is a tea dominant scent that also has a lot of violets, woods, has some unique other notes in there, and each of us had our own part to play in how we wanted this fragrance to smell. So at the top notes, you have Parma violets, star anise, magic mushrooms, and matcha. At the heart, you have dried rose petals, oolong tea, precious woods, and iron V. I can never spell or pronounce those notes anywhere. At the base, you have iris, myrrh, disco fog, accord, tonka, sandalwood powder, and kimum tea. Now, there's three specific teas in this fragrance, or three specific teas. Like tea comes from the Camellia Sinensis book, but there are herbal teas like rooibos and honeybush, chamomile, linden flower, things like that, peppermint. Those are considered like herbal teas, but a true tea is something from the Camellia Sinensis bush. So we have matcha, we have oolong, and we have kimum. So matcha's a green tea, oolong's obviously an oolong tea, and kimum is a Chinese black tea. And as I get into describing this fragrance, I am going to be mentioning those teas. There's also a note in here that isn't mentioned, is actually chrysanthemum, and that is going to be something very specific that I'm going to be mentioning too. I'm going to be breaking down this fragrance as to smell, but I kind of want to first tell you about how it smells without going into the nitty-gritty of every single note. Now, the idea of this fragrance was a coming together of three scents and of three people's idea of what like the perfect cup of tea scent would be if we were like together having fun and creating this fragrance. The idea was is if we were all hanging out in Christi's area where she creates her teas and we all kind of had our own part to create this fragrance, what would it smell like? So Lola is the goddess of violet fragrances. I don't think anyone else has the appreciation of violet the way that Lola does. I love tea, obviously, in all of its glory, drinking it and obviously smelling it. And Christi's unique spin on tea was the magic mushroom. So to create a scent that really showcased the magic mushroom, mushroomy aspect of this tea and this fragrance, Lola's love of violets and my love of basically tea as a scent, I think this really came together to be a unique like ensemble of a beautiful bouquet of just all of it together really creatively. Now this fragrance is a natural perfume. First and foremost, this, as far as I'm concerned, is not a limited edition fragrance, but these disco bottles are limited edition. She only has a certain number of these, but she'll be able to create them in 50 ml and the travel sizes. So if you're interested in getting the 100 ml disco bottles, there's only a certain amount of these because she only has a certain amount of these. And these are basically bottles from her liquid music collection. So obviously Scissor Sisters KiKi is a song. So we also wanted to kind of create a fragrance that encompassed that song too. This fragrance is a predominantly violet scent. It's violet start to finish. The violet is nice and bold. It's a little bit powdery, a little bit soft, a little bit dirty, but it's not something that's super powdery or super sweet. I actually love the chrysanthemum in here because it makes it kind of broomy and dry. The woods in here are really great too. Now, specifically the mushroom aspect of the opening gives it a little bit of earthy spiciness, which really works perfectly with the violet. Then as you wear it, you kind of get that more floral, green, bright citrusy bouquet of the oolong and the kimum tea. And it smells like a black tea fragrance that's really dripping in violets and has that beautiful kind of vegetal earthiness and spiciness from the mushrooms. I love that this fragrance start to finish has that beautiful violet heart. It's soft, it's fluffy, but it's dirty and edgy and a little bit grimy at the same time. It doesn't smell like a candy. It smells kind of like a fog machine if you had the violet, like powdery, beautiful perfume as part of the mix to create a fog machine fragrance. It doesn't smell challenging in any way, sacrificing how we wanted it to smell. It's a beautiful marriage of the three of us kind of coming together, having fun, having a KiKi, and creating something really cool and interesting and just really beautiful. Performance-wise, as a natural perfume, a lot of people have real issues with natural perfume in regards to its longevity. I understand that in some cases, natural perfume can be very fleeting. This one actually has a really ridiculously long lifespan, at least on my skin. I took a shower, and so I wore it in the beginning of the day, took a shower, and the next morning I could still smell it on my skin. It was very faint, but it was still there. So this does have a lifespan of, I would say, at least 6 to 8 hours. Its projection, I would say, is about arm's length, a little tiny bit longer. You're gonna get more violet and more tea at the longer that it's wearing in regards to like standing farther away. You're gonna get more of that spicy earthiness if you're standing closer to something. So at the end of the day, this is a beautiful fragrance and something I love and something I'm so excited is finally available for you guys. One of the reasons why I haven't been wearing a lot of different fragrances, if you guys follow my Instagram, you probably have seen a lot of days where I just haven't been sharing my scent of the day. That's because over the past several months, we've been testing the different versions of this until we came back to this one. And obviously I couldn't even kind of hint that this was coming because this was supposed to be a big, complete surprise. Now, I love this scent, obviously. I think it's amazing and definitely something that you guys should at least try and check out if you have the opportunity to. But I want to talk specifically about the tea. And if you guys are familiar with my channel, you know that for the longest time I've been working on a tea video and I've just been waiting, kind of waiting for this fragrance first and foremost, but also because there's a few other fragrances that I've been testing to give you guys the best kind of resource in regards to teas and how they smell and how taste and environment and history kind of translates to smell. It's something that is like a passion project of mine, same thing with the rose video. And I just come across more research, more fragrances that I just keep adding to it. But I will do it next year. It's definitely coming out next year. I was also waiting for this room to get done. So the three main teas in this fragrance are obviously matcha. Matcha is a powder tea, but it was part of the tea ceremony in Japan. And traditionally, a long time ago, it was only made with gyokuro tea leaves, which are like the highest quality green tea leaves that they were created. And I love to drink gyokuro green tea. I have a specific way that I make it. It's got to be brewed for 16 seconds with 3 medium-sized ice cubes. I'm very specific and I throw away the first water of it. So I'll brew it for like, I'd say 10 to 15 seconds, throw away that water, rebrew the tea leaves with the ice and the 16 seconds. I'm very specific with how I drink that tea. Matcha tea leaves obviously come in a variety of different grades, a variety of different leaves right now. It can be made with sencha, it can be made with other green tea leaves. And honestly, for the most part, unless you're drinking it kind of like as a prestige thing. Like, it being made of different tea leaves is totally okay. You are actually drinking the tea leaves when you drink matcha, so it is deeper, it is richer, it is slightly more bitter. That's totally okay. It actually is really, really good. And matcha to me has a real earthiness, and sometimes it has a tiny bit of a nuttiness to it. But when I smell matcha in fragrances, I expect a deep, earthy green fragrance. That's what I look for. That's what I want. If you're going to use matcha and not green tea, it has to have the characteristic flavors of matcha, which is very bold, very robust for a green tea, but it has to have that kind of slightly earthy nuttiness to it. And what I love about KiKi is it has that earthy nuttiness to it, which really pairs with the magic mushrooms as a great way to kind of open this fragrance. It has a bright opening, but it's not like a dazzling brightness. It's kind of like almost like a dull light, which works with the idea of this being kind of like a disco ball nightclub fragrance after you've had a night out with your friends, going to your friend's house, talking about all the fun you've had. You're tired, you're kicking off your shoes, you're turning down the blinds, and you're having a cup of tea and you're talking about the days going. I like that it doesn't have that dazzling super brightness to it. It works with how this fragrance is supposed to smell. And I think that the brightness, but also the earthiness and spiciness that the matcha and the mushroom have to this fragrance is really super positive in regards to it just being very successful for the tone that this fragrance is supposed to be, which is going to be kind of like foggy and fluffy and fun. Now at the middle, we have an oolong tea, and this is around the time that you're also going to be able to pick up that chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum is a fantastic tea. What I like is that it adds a dryness to this fragrance, but it still kind of has that spicy earthiness. And that dryness really helps this violet fragrance not be too tutti frutti, too candy, too sweet, too powdery. And I love tutti frutti violet fragrances, and I love green leafy violet fragrances too, but I like the fact that this is dry and semi-dusty and earthy, and it really is a very grounding fragrance, but it's also a lot of fun. Oolong is a fragrance that oolong tea is actually a tea that is like in between the production, the fermentation process of green and black tea. So it's semi-fermented, it's got a greenness to it, it's got an earthiness to it, it's got a more vegetal taste and smell to it. And that vegetal taste and smell really works again with the violet and with the mushroom. And this is going back to what Lola wanted this fragrance to smell like, what Christi wanted to add to it, and what I wanted to add to it. This oolong really kind of anchors and works with this kind of earthiness and nuttiness that the matcha has, and it kind of takes over and really blankets and sets the stage with the woods and the myrrh and this really fun kind of disco ball accord, but specifically the violet. It works to make the violet with the chrysanthemum, it's a little bit dry and dusty and broomy, a little bit more dirty. It's a little bit rebellious. It has a little bit of an edge, but it's still a violet fragrance. And I think that it's really cool how this kind of transitions to something that's a little bit kind of spicy and earthy into dry and dusty, but at the same time, like a true violet, which just smells really, really fantastic. The anise comes out a little bit at this time too, which gives it a nice little kick in the background, which works really well with the violet. Again, violets can be powdery, violets can be really kind of candy-like and sweet. This is kind of a dirty, earthy, but very sweet violet. And again, it works really well that everything is super well balanced. And I think the oolong tea with the chrysanthemum really kind of helps anchor that. Now, what I'm really excited for, and if you guys don't know, when we were working on She, Christi sent me so many different tea kind of ingredients that she had. And one of the things she sent me was keemum tea. Now, keemum tea is a Chinese black tea. It's not as, I would say, bold and robust as other Chinese black teas. Another Chinese Indian tea is Darjeeling tea. Those leaves specifically are Chinese, but they are kind of come from India, obviously, Darjeeling. And those kind of are a little bit more green, a little bit more bright, a little more like mild to medium bodied. Keemum is like the next kind of like medium bodied, can be a little bit robust depending on where you get your tea. And a lot of times when people think of what a black tea smells like, they think of the style and flavor and aroma and bouquet of a keemum tea. It has a green zinginess to it. It has a slight floral bouquet. It has a little tiny bit of nuttiness in the background, but for the most part, it's very bright, it's very green, it's very fresh, slightly citrusy and floral. And I think that the fact that this is a black tea, so it has that kind of medium-bodied smell to it, works really well with the woods and the myrrh and the violet, and again is a perfect transition from oolong smell to black tea. I think Kimom, especially when I smelled it in its like raw form of ingredients that she had, was a perfect just balance. It helps hold on to that earthiness without making it too robust, too strong, too medicinal. It just smells like earthy and bright and green and slightly dry, and takes that violet from the middle to the base where it just kind of gets more woody, a little bit more dirty, a little bit more strong and more aromatic. And it's just really fantastic. And what I like seeing is in the opening, the base, or the heart and the base, is the fact that in regards to how teas are processed, you have green, then oolong, then black, and then we get into like pu'er, but that's a whole different story. I like that that's a general way that this fragrance smells. You got the beautiful characteristics of the green tea, which perfectly transitions into this oolong tea, which perfectly transition into the correct black tea. I think if they used the Darjeeling note, I think it would have been too light, a little bit too in the background. I love seeing Darjeeling tea in fragrances. Specifically, my favorite way is an elephant from Zoologist, but I feel like Kimom was the right tea to really kind of not overpower this really unique kind of dusty, beautiful, powdery, earthy, slightly spicy violet and mushroom note, and it's just the perfect transition to the end, which is this really beautiful, very wearable, very earthy, dry, unique violet scent. Now this is a dry fragrance, but it has a bit of fluff to it. It's feminine, but not stereotypically what you would consider a women's marketed fragrance. I like the fact that it has a bit of a maturity to it, but at the same time, it's very playful and fun. And at the end of the day, I have been super obsessed with this fragrance, and I've been trying my hardest not to film this video until I've worn this new version, the final version, enough to be able to give you guys a proper review. Obviously, when we get sent the fragrances to try, it's not a finished perfume. So when we get the finished perfume, it's got everything in it to make it a fragrance, it's macerated long enough, and we're ready to give it a proper go, which is why I've been waiting a while to share this with you guys. At the end of the day, whenever I get to hang out and chat with Lola, who's absolutely amazing, I got to meet her once, I definitely want to try sometime this year and have the three of us get together. She's so sweet, she's so knowledgeable, I can't even say that word. She's so passionate about fragrance. Definitely check out her channel, I will link it below. But at the same time, like working with Christi, she's the type of person that she gets so excited to create. And as somebody whose my career, my money is based on art, I totally understand the excitement to create new things and being inspired by people around you. Christi definitely wanted to create this fragrance in partnership with two people that she really admires, which I'm excited that that's me, and I can definitely understand Lola. And I don't know if you guys know, but actually Lola is the one who got me into House of Matriarch. I was familiar with the house, I hadn't had the opportunity to try or sample, and Lola had actually mailed me a bunch of samples of House of Matriarch. And so when I first did my Madrona review, was my first impressions of House of Matriarch, Lola had actually sent me that sample. So I also love the idea of this being kind of like a project that equally the three of us put into. Obviously, Christi did a majority of the work in creating and using her expertise, her craftsmanship, and her artistry to create this fragrance. But I love that how, for me, it's like full circle in regards to just one of the most positive experiences that this fragrance community has been for me, which is just coming together with people who love scent, who genuinely love scent, and also creating. So the fact that Lola had the time to be a part of this, she's very, very busy, was absolutely exceptional. And obviously working with Christi every single time is amazing. She's somebody I consider a dear friend. And just being able to sit with two very strong, independent, knowledgeable, and passionate women and to create this fragrance is something that definitely, even though 2021 was very hard for me, probably the hardest year of my life, this is actually the one thing that just made this year really, really good and helped me get through it was, on top of family and friends, just having this project in the background is something that kind of gave me a little bit of energy to move forward. And I'm so excited that it's finally available for you guys to try if you're so interested. Anyway, that is my review of KiKi from House of Matriarch. Again, these 100 ml disco balls are limited edition. As far as I know, the fragrance is not limited edition. The ingredients are expensive. Obviously, Christi creates luxury fragrances, so even though I love this, I would definitely recommend sampling it first before purchasing. But if you do love violet fragrances and you like powdery scents and you want to try something a little bit more different, a little bit more special, but still wearable and very beautiful, definitely try KiKi if you have the opportunity. It's amazing. Humongous thank you again to Christi for making this happen, and to Lola for her love and passion and knowledge of violet. Really made this a violet dominant scent that I don't really see on the market, so it's definitely worth checking out if you guys have. In any case, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye!